Thanks, Marissa. That was a beautiful rendition. I've heard many, and so have we, but I haven't heard one as beautiful as that, I think. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to do a poem by Susan Cooper called The Shortest Day. And I'd like you all to participate in this at the end. Let's do a practice. It's going to be the very last line in this. Welcome Yule. Let's hear you guys do that. Okay, okay, no. Not,
Welcome Yule.
no,
We got it.
one more time, let's do it. Welcome Yule. Okay, so we get there. This will be your cue. When I go do this, we all do it together. I will do it once, and then everybody does the last one all together. Okay. The Shortest Day by Susan Cooper. And so the shortest day came, and the year died. And all down the centuries of the snow-white world came people, singing and dancing to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees. They hung their homes with evergreens. They burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive. And when the new year's sunshine blazed wake, they shouted, reveling. Through all the frosty ages, you can hear them echoing behind us. Listen. All the long echoes sing the same delight, this shortest day. As promise wakens in the sleeping land, they carol, they feast, give thanks, and dearly love their friends, and hope for peace. And now, so do we. Here, now, this year, and every year. Welcome Yule. Welcome Yule. My family, many years ago, we started a tradition thinking about this piece and the solstice, this time of year, and Yule, and what it means to us in the present, what it meant to ancient peoples, pre-Christian, Neolithic peoples who marked time by the seasons, by the slow pulse of our planet and the cosmos, the light changing cyclically, rhythmatically, and they were able to measure that. We started doing that as well. So on the solstice, we made note of where the shadows were, provided we had sun, and many times there wasn't. We had a cloudy morning, but we thought about it. But on those mornings where there was sunlight and the sun was rising or setting, we would make a note of where the shadows were. And next year, we would pay attention to that. We note that that tree lined up with that post, or we even put things in the ground. We put a post in the ground or put a rock down or something. And we would see this happening at the solstice. And we would make note of the other times of the year, the equinoxes as well. And we would look at where the light was and the repeating cycles of nature. And it gave us a tradition and a hope that we could hang on to. It was something foundational, as it is to me now. So I'll leave you with that. You can start your own traditions in a similar way. Look at where the shadows are, the corners of your house, the corners of my house this morning. I look at all the right angles, and somehow all the right angles on my house, the 45-degree angles, are arrows all pointing to the sunrise. So, and I was lucky this morning to have a sunrise and a sun and a bright star providing light and warmth and providing that link to now and the future and being respectful of all the ancient peoples that perhaps felt the same way. And so it is.
Winter solstice. Perhaps for a moment the keyboards will stop clicking, the wheels stop rolling, the computers desist from computing, and a hush will fall over the land. For an instant, in the stillness, the chiming of celestial spheres will be heard as earth hangs poised in the crystalline darkness and then gracefully tilts. Let there be a season when holiness is heard and the splendor of living is revealed. Stunned to stillness by beauty, we remember who we are and why we are here. There are inexplicable mysteries. We are not alone. In the universe there moves a wild one whose gestures alter Earth's access towards love. In the immense darkness, everything spins with joy. Well, unlike Joe, I only started marking the solstice a couple of years ago. I think many of you know I was raised in a Christian household up in northern Minnesota. Minnesota, did you get that? Up in northern Minnesota. This is a small country church, as I've said before, and so our Christmases were they were just very lowbrow, very traditional. You know, you trimmed the tree. We went to church. My mom put out a stocking with oranges and apples and nuts and chocolate candies in it. We got some presents from Santa. It was all very sweet and simple and very lovely with just my little family of 4. I had no idea that this thing called solstice, I didn't even really recognize the science behind it. I didn't know any of this. And then 4 years ago, I was working for Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light. This is a faith-based climate justice organization. There are IPLs all across the country. And we were sort of at the tail ends of the fight against Line 3, the tar sands pipeline that was making its way from the Bakken fields in northern North Dakota through northern Minnesota, going precariously close to hundreds of bodies of water, indigenous territories, treaty land that belongs to the Anishinaabe people, making its way towards Lake Superior, crossing near the Mississippi headwaters, and then joining in what is being built as Line 5 through northern Wisconsin. Awful, terrible tar sands pipelines, dirty, 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 leaking tar sand pipelines. And we can mire ourselves in the sorrow and the misery and the disappointment and the pain that these things still manage to exist in our worlds. These threats to our earth, these threats to our waters, our clean waters, our lands. And yet when I was part of the Line 3 movement, the protest against these tar sands, we would gather at the water and we would pray at the water. And the indigenous organizers who I was in relationship with would teach us what it was like to be in relationship with all of life, would teach us what it was like to pray at the water in a way that did not make it an us and them, an us and it, this thing that just nourishes us, but that we are in a reciprocal relationship with the water. And so before this solstice in 2021, there was a big cold snap that had happened. And I live in St. Paul. I live not terribly far from the Mississippi River. And I walked down to this spot that I really like. And I was there for all kinds of other purposes as well as the solstice. I had some filming that I needed to do because in my work we do a lot of multimedia and a lot of ways of trying to share stories online. And so I went down there to get some shots of the river for some project that I was working on. And I stood there by the river and I forgot all what I was there to do because the river was partially frozen. And yet there was some open water that was part of it. And I could hear this noise, and I went, what is that noise? What am I hearing? And it was cracking of the ice. The water was flowing and it was cracking up the ice that was on one side of the river. And I just stood there, entranced by this sound, and then the birds all around, and the freezing cold connection that winter brings us in that visceral way to the earth, which seems like it is completely fallow, completely dormant, and yet, it's not. And so, as I was part of MNIPL, we put out what was called the Water and Stars Solstice Guide. And it was a way for people, no matter where they were, to get some guidance on how they could deepen into the solstice, deepen into a sense of connection in whatever way might work. We offered some practices oriented around breath, oriented around candles, oriented around water, and of course darkness and stars, and just left it up to people to do what they will. And so I gathered up those candles, and I had spent the day before drying out orange slices in my oven all day long. Oh, the smell. And I turned on the space heater in my porch, because my porch is not heated. And I turned on the space heater, and the sun was shining. It was right around sunset. That's when I was out there. And the sun was just sort of in that, that light that you get at wintertime with sunset. And I lit my candles, and I looked through the orange slices. I held one up to my window, and I looked at the translucent glow through that orange slice. And I had what is called a singing bowl that you might know from the Tibetan tradition. And I had filled it with water. And I just sat there for a moment, striking that bowl, seeing the water shimmer in it, and hearing that doing, doing, doing. It was really simple. I didn't spend too much time on it. I sat out there for a couple of minutes. But I marked. I paid attention. I noticed. And I was able to just spend a moment expressing gratitude for the cycles of nature and life, of paying attention. And then I had to learn what exactly is the winter solstice, because I didn't know. I can say that, don't judge me. I didn't know. Here's the short, one-sentence scientific definition. The solstice, the winter solstice, is the point along the Earth's annual solar orbit when the northern hemisphere is at its furthest from the sun. It's part of the solar orbit. So today, December 21st, here in St. Croix Falls, I looked this up, not in St. Paul, St. Croix Falls, 7:47 a.m. was the sunrise. 4:30 p.m. will be the sunset. 8 hours and 43 minutes of daylight. Where I live in St. Paul, I get 4 extra minutes. And on my drive out here, I set the alarm on my phone to go off at 9:03 a.m. I was on Highway 8, because I drive up 35. I get off at the Taylors Falls exit. I was on Highway 8, and at that precise moment, I was driving, you know how the road curves and bends, and I was heading exactly northeast. And I had my little orange tree thing seat belted into the passenger seat of my car. And I looked over, and don't tell anybody, but I took my phone out and I took some pictures while I was driving. I was not looking. I kept my eyes on the road, and I just sort of just kept pressing the button, hoping that this would be in the picture. And when I got here to the church, I looked at my pictures. And in one of those photos, I captured the sun shining through one of those orange slices. The winter solstice means more than science, as we know. Barbara Wells Ten Hove, I think, gives how it signifies something pretty special for humanity. So here's her definition of the winter solstice. It is the dark time. The dark time has come. The earth in her great dance around the sun has come inevitably to the solstice, the time of extremes, of distance, of darkness and light. In our hemisphere, we experience this time as one of cold darkness, of shortening days and lengthening nights. The earth is tipping, from our perspective, further and further away from the sun. We wait, but the moment when the darkness is greatest is not entirely predictable. The spinning dance of the earth continues, but for one brief instance, when the axis of the earth's rotation crosses the line through the center of our orbit around the sun, the tipping stops. And for just a moment, we seem to stand suspended in space, pulsing with potential movement and ongoing life. Then, like a child's top that almost fell over, we are saved by the spin and lifted up again towards the light. Tipping, we almost fall over. Oftentimes, we actually, in our lives, fall over, don't we? And we are saved by something, by someone, by ourselves, by this community, by communities like ours, by the interconnections and interdependencies that we are part of, lifting us up again, helping us pulsate with potential, helping us understand how we are part of the transience of ongoing life. Starting tomorrow, we are going to gain seconds of daylight with every rising of the sun and every setting. Seconds every day, marching us on until we meet the solstice again next summer. But let us take time right now. As David White says in a line of one of his poems, the night will give you a horizon further than you can see. Rest in that darkness. Reflect in that darkness. See what you can see in that darkness. What kinds of hidden wisdom are within and around you. Sometimes hope is most visible, I think, in the darkness, because hope requires us to see it for its long potential, not for the flash, but for the way that hope is a practice, a commitment. Hope, I think, can be found in that darkness. So tomorrow, let us throw open our front doors and holler out, "Hello, welcome back, son!" Will you do that tomorrow? Throw open your doors. Step outside into the colds and holler out, welcome back, son. And today and every night, let us remember that there can be no light without the darkness. Blessed be.